fucking kind of like, I don't know, kind of like they were in good spirits when they were doing the interview, and she just softened him in and she was like, oh, tell us all about like the prison and kind of like, you know, the mental institute and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, just like the mood was like a fucking lead balloon, and it was like, oh, but they were still kind of joking about it. They were like, Josh and Kenny, they were going on, oh, well, we went to see him in prison and he showed up and fucking like,
this massive orange jumpsuit.
Yeah, and he was sitting down, he shouted at us for 10 minutes and then walked off. And they were like,
and he was just sitting there going, yeah. Super.
I think it was when he was in prison they kind of like diagnosed him with drug-induced psychosis, and he ended up spending time in psychiatric places, and then he went into rehab. So it was like, it was a journey for him, and like he ended up kind of like towards the end of his life going clean, but they ended up breaking away from Roadrunner Records thing, and they went with I think it was SPV Records again for their last album called Dead Again, which I suppose it was more kind of a gritty kind of like kind of probably more closer to the earlier stuff than anything that they had done. It got like kind of well kind of received and stuff, but it's I don't know, there's not the songs on it that would have been like, I mean, there's still Typo Negative very much, and it seemed to be them coming back on form, and they were very, very happy with it, but I don't think it's one of the things that they'd be remembered for with it, unfortunately. But yeah, and then kind of like after that thing, unfortunately, a very gloomy. Yeah, it was years later in 2010. He died from I suppose complications with his heart. He was like, he had like a flu, or he was in bed with what he thought was like flu, and then there was like complications with it, and he died. I think it was probably one of the, like, you hear like famous people dying the whole time, but I think it was one of the few ones where I was like incredibly sad, and I was like shocked.
I seem to recall the time we didn't hear about it straight away, because we were moving house at the time. It was actually a couple of weeks after it happened that we'd heard about it, because we were totally...
we didn't have the internet.
Yeah, we were totally cut off. We were kind of off grid for a while. We had no internet. And of course this wouldn't have been reported in mainstream news, so it was like a couple of weeks after it happened we got back online, we got back in touch with like the mainstream world.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden
you're
like...
to Pete Steele yourself, you're like, why didn't you help us move? And he was like, oh I died,
yeah,
sorry.
that was it.
But
it was like all of a sudden when we sort of got back into like finding out about what was going on in the world, and it was like, Pete Steele died a couple of weeks ago, and we're just like, what? Seriously? Oh my god.
Yeah, I thought it was a joke, because there was bits and pieces like that other than the 2005 one. There used to be kind of like oh my god, Pete Steele is dead, you know, and they used to joke about it, and so there was part, is this a fucking
this is a wine?
It's just like, oh my god,
poor taste first, or
there was that kind of thing. It's kind of like, oh my god. But one of the few things where I really felt kind of like it was fucking kind of like devastated by it, actually. Because especially because he was after going clean, just building up to it, but it's just unfortunately, I suppose, kind of like life catches up with you. I think sometimes, and as well, if you have a genetic condition, there's only, you know, can't
really hide away from it.
Yeah,
or run away from it, like.
It's that was Pete Steele, and that's the thing. What I quite like about, I know we didn't get to like other things when we're talking about people's lives, like Henry Rollins or fucking Ozzy Osbourne and all that. We delved deep into their life. I think one of the things that was like endearing about Pete Steele is the mystery behind his, and as well that it wasn't like a lot of the darker stuff wasn't overly public. He'd talk about it, but it wasn't what people focused on. I don't think it should be what people focus on when they remember Pete Steele. It should be who he was on stage, and like people talking about that he was like this incredibly nice guy, even in the fucking fits of kind of like drug addiction and mental illness and stuff, that he still managed to be someone that was incredibly likable and nice to be around.
Yeah, you can see that as well, like that so many people like were kind of upset when he died by the amount of tributes other bands kind of came,
loads
gave like for his death.
Like Typo Negative were a fucking massive band. They're a massive influence on people, because it really was at the time, kind of like in the 90s. Like if people go back and listen to our podcast about the history of 90s metal, like the 90s was an extremely important time for metal when it started really spreading out and kind of like diverging from like hair metal and fucking kind of like glam rock and kind of like just like fucking Judas Priest or kind of like some of the early 80s metal bands. And Typo, like nowadays you kind of listen to them, and kind of go, oh yeah, they're. But at the time, there was nothing like Typo Negative.
Yeah.
They influenced a whole different genre of music as well. I think as well, because of their personalities were so big as well, sometimes people forget about the importance of their music, or kind of like how much it changed stuff come along, especially with being on MTV when it was like became so popular.
Yeah.
There was loads of bands that kind of like really, really, really took to it. Like, I hate to say kind of like fucking that Black Veil Brides and all that, but like all those bands, they wouldn't exist only for Typo Negative and Pete Steele. And like as well, it was the whole thing with him being a great frontman as well. But it's the singing, the style of singing as well. There was nothing really like that before in metal, where there was that
real
deepness.
Baritone.
Yeah. To it, and someone who could really, really sing.
Yeah, rather than growl or whatever. Yeah, it was just this clean, deep baritone. And just.
I think Paul Bear did a cover of "Love You to Death" a few years ago as well, which is really good. Yeah. But it's. So, what did you think when you were reading up about him and stuff, as kind of like outsiders to life of Pete Steele?
It's just kind of a, like, overall I find just kind of a slightly sad kind of, it reflects kind of their music in the sense that, like, it's kind of a gothic story of his life turned into a gothic story, as it were, and it's almost kind of, you can almost, like, link his kind of chapters of his life to the albums and how they're titled, like, so, like, near the end especially, kind of, like, when he's kind of world coming down, life is killing me, and then dead again, kind of like really are kind of on point, but it's just a real kind of gothic sad story, but at the same time, you know, there's still happiness in there mixed through it. So
but this is the thing, I think, with the band themselves, like they all had a genuine, they're like friends from a young age. They didn't really have like fall out.
They had a proper bond, like,
But you can see that even in the sense that when he passed away, like the question a lot of bands ask themselves, do we continue on? Like, you can see, like, if they were in it just for money and whatnot, they might have gone on and done some more tours or whatnot.
It seemed like there was no question about it. They were like, well, part of us is gone, so no.
Yeah, like, it wouldn't be the same. You couldn't, it's like, you couldn't really do it anymore, so might as well just call closing time on it.
Yeah,
and like, I mean, the thing is that Kenny Hickey is still kind of like playing away, and Johnny Kelly is in the band Silverton, which are really, really good. Different, but there's still that sound, because I suppose his guitar sound was
big part
of Typo Negative. Like, I mean, they all were, like, I know we focus on Pete Steele because it is about Pete Steele, kind of like today we're talking about him, but like, I mean, they were all fantastic musicians in their own right, and they came together to kind of craft that sound as well. But the interviews with him, you just see love there between the whole lot.
Yeah, they're just proper gang of friends. Just really enjoying hanging out together and creating music together.
Have any, like, massive public, you know, kind of falling outs? Not that I saw anyway. Because
no, I think that they were just felt so kind of like lucky, kind of like coming from that working class background, and as well, they weren't really making money. It was just like, these guys,
doing it for the love of it,
for metal bands, they were sent on tour for 2 years straight, you know, to promote like Bloody Kisses and stuff. And there's no money. You live off the road, and then they get back and they're like, oh fuck, we've no money.
Let's get back working again.
With it. So it's a tough fucking life, and like, there's one of the things. Redneck Dracula is one of my favorite things where he has like the teeth, and it's just stupid fucking humor, like that. But they just seem to be like that an awful lot with things, and
just all this mucking around, kind of, you know, let's have a lark and let's have a bit of a laugh, and it just all seems so light-hearted and just such, you know, they're just entertaining themselves, and that's, do you know what I mean? But in the meantime, entertaining everybody else as well.
And you could see it when they're on stage as well.
And they'd be one of your favourite bands, wouldn't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's like I was saying, like, I like the later albums, but I prefer, I suppose, is a better way of saying, kind of like, you know, the kind of, but it's like what you were saying, Mark, as well, that it's kind of like around the ones that you first hear, more kind of like when you're a certain age as well, that they kind of stick with you a little bit more. I think around the time when the later albums came out, I just wasn't into music as well. I think it was just like a bit burned out with metal, and it just all seemed to be the same stuff, or kind of like in the 2000s, metal wasn't really in a great
wasn't in great shape, was it?
Yeah.
No.
with it. So it's just,
Looking for something different, weren't you? Indeed.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's kind of like that is the legend of Pete Steele.
It is indeed.
Sorry for anyone expect a big thing where it's going to like, oh, in 1993, Pete Steele had his first piece of toast.
Yes, indeed.
Well, yeah, it was just
But
more
that
of
is
a
a true
tribute.
fact. He didn't have the first piece of toast till 1993.
Yeah. But yeah, so thank you for listening.
Yes.
Don't forget to go over to our Instagram as well and like everything on it numerous times. Set up multiple accounts so you can like something 50 million times.
Create a botnet for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our Facebook page as well, which people seem to be discovering, which we don't maintain at all.
Yes, I really should start. I think the last post is last October or something like that, so maybe we should start posting a bit
But
more
under
there.
the post up, just go to our Instagrams.
Yes, redirect.
But yes,
Go and listen to some Typo Negative, perhaps, as well.
and until next week,
Have a fabulous
So on.
week.
arrivederci.